see something suspicious, but you don't want to get involved. It's nothing, you think. Can you be sure? If you see something, say something.
And of course, now they have Attack Watch. And they say that if you criticize anything Obama's doing, that it's basically evil and horrible, and that you need to sign up with them to, like, in swarms of Obama bots who feel all trendy, that don't know they're working for Goldman Sachs. You go out and attack anybody that doesn't 110% go along with them. All right, now I want to go ahead and get into our last story before we go to Lord Monckton with further comment. And then after that, we've got Stewart Rhodes joining us as well. There's no way to describe what a con artist Al Gore is. I mean, I never even used profanity on air in 16 years, and I have to use it for him. This person, I mean, I would not buy anything from them. If they came to my door, I would call the police. I mean, Al Gore is a swollen bag of scrofulous pus. Al Gore is an anti-American globalist who's called for a post-industrial America because he has investments with Maurice Strong in China. When they shut down our industries, that increases their insider industries over there. And now he claims he controls reality. Al Gore now is running, as we speak, a 24-hour propaganda piece saying that it's a hoax that we don't believe in man-made global warming, and that anyone who criticizes him works for oil companies. When we document, it is the major oil companies with Ken Lay, with Al Gore on record. That's even in the New York Times, who came up with this to shut down coal that is their competition. Now, is coal perfect? Certainly not. Do they have a lobby fighting Al Gore? Some of them, yeah. But he mixes all of this together. So I want to play this clip, but this is a guy who wants you to pay more for less. This is a guy who's a globalist and hates this country. And this is a guy who has been so full of crap through the years. Do I need to list the examples? Invented the internet. The list goes, NAFTA and GATT are a great idea. It's a good deal, Larry, on Larry King Live. We'll go ahead and go to this disgusting clip. I probably can't watch much of it.
Become a mudslide. A forest can become kindling.
Oh.
Across the globe, cataclysmic weather events are occurring with such regularity that it's being called a new
Pay Al Gore money and there won't be
nothing
forest fires.
And there's something else.
I say it with a trendy list.
The truth about climate change.
The truth. I have the
Big oil and Big coal are spending big money
the
to
internet.
spread doubt about climate change. They've been able to do so quietly. But
nobody, you are the hoax.
14th, the world will
They've been able to do so quietly with us trying to shut them down.
Attention on the full
like 24 hours of
scale and
I'm sorry.
Climate crisis.
24 hours of Al Gore sitting on the toilet crapping on us. Look, I can't take anymore. Shut it off. Shut it off. Shut it off. Look, the curtain's been pulled aside, little man. We know who you are. You're running a scam. You're trying to seize control of the entire society. With more on the mythical savior, the fabled man-bear-pig, the inventor of the internet, the gentleman that told us how great NAFTA and GATT would be and destroyed our economy, the person who owns large portions of a major oil company but lectures us all day and has palaces around the United States but tells little old ladies to cut back on their energy consumption, with more on the person who gives us the 24 hours of reality. We wouldn't have reality or any form of truth if it wasn't for our illustrious man-bear-pig. But the only person that can counter someone this powerful is an individual like Lord Christopher Monckton of Monckton and Brenchley, who, of course, is an inventor and researcher and scientist in his own right, and a top advisor to Margaret Thatcher. Lord Monckton, thank you so much for joining us during the 24 hours of reality. Al Gore, of course, told the Aspen Club a few weeks ago that they're in deep trouble and that more and more they're basically being laughed at. I've seen him on another stage talking to pundits about it. Their hoax is imploding, so now they're claiming that our response to them is a hoax. You have been the chief individual exposing the true fraud. So has Man-Bear-Pig gotten to the precipice, or has he already fallen from it?
Well, Al Gore is all over the floor, and this relaunch, like everything else he touches, has turned out to be a spectacular failure, Alex, because why did he choose September the 14th? Well, the answer's quite easy, really. It is that that was the day on which he had hoped that the sea ice extent in the Arctic would have fallen to a new low in the 30-year satellite record. Trouble was, it didn't. He thought it was going to. He planned today to say, I told you so, it's all happening, the Arctic ice is melting, and in fact, of course, it hasn't happened. It's quite some way above where it was this time in 2007, which was the record low, and it appears already to have turned the corner, and from now on, of course, as the winter gathers strength in the Northern Hemisphere, so the sea ice will grow back just as it always does. So he got that wrong, and frankly, he knows that despite the billion, and it's now actually 100 billion, that has been spent in the United States alone on promoting this global warming rubbish, the people aren't buying it anymore. Every time there's an extreme weather event, a drought in Texas, a few tornadoes, a bit of rain from the back end of a hurricane in New York, upper New York State, immediately Al Gore is there saying this is global warming. Except that the record of hurricanes over the last few years has been less activity than at any time in the satellite record.
That's what I was about to say, and it's also come out that his film is lying. Polar bears are great swimmers. Their numbers have exploded. The Himalayas haven't melted. Kilimanjaro is coming back. And I just saw on mainstream news, I should have had the article yesterday, in fact, I'll show it later if we can dig it out, that they admitted that this is one of the earliest times that the shrinkage has actually stopped and reversed back to growing. So that parlor trick of showing a satellite image of one of the poles during the summer when it starts shrinking and implying that it's all about to disappear when we know that it is a cyclical season thing, that huge fraud is imploding. And now, as you know, Der Spiegel last week came out and said, well, actual sea levels are dropping now. That's the global warming, when Al Gore promised that we'd already be underwater.
That's quite right. And indeed, earlier this year, I published a paper by Professor Niklas Mörner, who is the ranking world expert on sea level. And the title of the paper was Sea Level is Not Rising. And this was in the spring, so he was well ahead of the curve here. And when he was due to introduce this paper at a Cambridge University climate conference that I was helping to organize, the organizers banned him from distributing the paper because they were so furious at the title, Sea Level is Not Rising. And of course, ever since then, it's been dropping like a stone. And the excuse of the usual suspects is that this is because global warming has meant more rainfall, and therefore all the rain has gone on the land and it will eventually flow back into the ocean and the ocean will rise again. But frankly, these excuses that Gore and others come up with are beginning to wear terribly thin. And that the truth of the matter is that by a number of different measures, it's now been pretty well established that if we were to double the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere between now and the end of the century, that might cause maybe 1 Celsius of warming. That at the moment is most people's best guess, not the 3 or 4 or 6 or 11 that Gore and his mates have been saying. 1 Celsius, and that's harmless. And even if you wanted to try to stop the 3 or 4 or 6 Celsius that they have been trying to say will happen, it's 10 times cheaper to take the really rather small damage that such warming would cause than it is to try to make it go away.
But Lord Monckton,
yeah,
you've broken these numbers down. I mean, you don't like to toot your horn, but you've been a trailblazer. They've talked about your arrest in Europe, saying that you're a climate denier. He is now running promo videos. I couldn't watch much of the 24-hour garbage, but I did watch some of it. But I watched the promo videos saying, we're going after the deniers. Obama has launched this attack watch group that says report people to the authorities that criticize Obama. I mean, it seems they're really trying to go into an authoritarian mode. And he says, how dare them in this promo video say that carbon dioxide isn't a pollutant, the evil oil companies. But in truth, most of the big oil companies have actually been on the bandwagon for a while, and they want to use it to shut down their competition in coal. So that's another lie. What can you say about this call to criminally, because now it's happening to myself, to criminally come after us for denying our high priest Al Gore? A, I want you to comment on that, and then B, how high have, from ice core samples, carbon dioxide levels been in the past versus now?
Okay, hold on to your hats and let's do that second question first. If we go back to the Neoproterozoic era, which is 750 million years ago, you're too young to remember, Alex, at that time there was 30% CO2 in the atmosphere. How do we know? Because it was at that time that the dolomitic rocks were formed, and dolomitic rock can only form if it precipitates out from the sea, if there is a partial pressure of CO2 above the sea of at least 30%. We can tell this by doing experiments in the laboratory, so we know that. 30%. And how much is it today? Is it 5%? No. 10%? No. 2%? No. 1%? No. It's 0.04% today. And even when it was 30% in the atmosphere, glaciers a mile high came and went twice at sea level and at the equator. So there's no way that CO2 could possibly have the enormous warming effect which Gore and the usual suspects have been trying to pretend. It simply isn't happening. And now, as to this desperate attempt to criminalize you and me, Alex, for saying that we are climate deniers, notice how they use that word deniers. With all its overtones of Holocaust denial, they do it every day. Nobody bats an eyelid. But when in Australia recently, I pointed out that one of their economists had expressed opinions that were effectively fascist opinions. Oh, how Lord Lundy cried. All the left, all the way across the world were saying Monckton is terrible. He has said that Professor X is a fascist. Well, no, I didn't say that. I said the opinion he expressed in saying that there is no alternative but to believe exactly what one narrow version of climate science tells us.
Well, hold on, Lord Monckton. A bunch of them are in the news calling for green fascism, not the particular guy, but I've seen it all over the news. Carbon rationing, carbon cards, they call it green fascism, and they say, we don't make any excuses. We need to be authoritarian. I've even seen Financial Times of London articles written by their foreign editor. One was titled, "And Now for World Government," saying it needs to be authoritarian because the people won't do what's right. We'll just make them. I mean, you're one of the top researchers. I mean, how many of them have said things like this?
It's been happening all over the place. In fact, the European Union, secretly now, because when I first exposed it, they put it underground, they are already drawing up plans for a European and eventually international environmental criminal court, where anyone like you and me who dares to say that there are real scientific doubts published in the peer-reviewed literature about how far this scare is going to go, then these plans are already being laid as we speak. And the